monies that we have received, and then the total monies with in kind. If you look and see, we received more than 3 times our funding amount in kind contributions, and whether that be personnel, operating expenses, and supervision. So again, if you look at FY19, we have an asterisk there, and that is that pending funding from the United Way. But it's something that we feel is important to keep going. When we have that collaboration and that point of coordination, we get farther than when we're trying to do things individually. So that is my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, any questions, County Commissioners? Staff?
Terry, I think when you first started this endeavor with the Family Center, that was part of the Office of Grant Management, I think we found some funding through an L&B grant. I think we brought Terry on, and she's done an absolutely wonderful job. She's the face of early childhood education here in Washington County, and for that I'd like to thank you. I do know you have some funding challenges, but please stick to it. There's always funding that will come up somewhere. I see Stephanie Leopold's out in the audience, and perhaps continue to collaborate with the Office of Grant Management to find some funding opportunities. But you've done a wonderful job. I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and I very much appreciate that. For me, it's a fabulous opportunity. I'm not asking about my position. I'm asking about and please, I'm not. Please take this in the way I mean it. Right. There needs to be a coordinator for these efforts, whether that be me or anyone else. But
that was a call from the community. The community
absolutely
wanted a coordinator. We had several options, direct care providers, but the community from Boonesboro to Hancock said we need a coordinator. So Terry's filled that gap very well. So
thank you very much, Jim. I really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Any other comments?
I think what Mr. Hovis said is absolutely right. Terry's a good face for this program, and I know you had the slide of all the different partners that you work with, and you've even been able to rope me in on some of those initiatives from time to time, and I've enjoyed working with you and hearing about your passion and the important work that you do. I just think it's amazing that you have that many partners that are willing to step forward and give financially or in-kind services as well. Goes a long way. So
thank you very much.
How many people think what you do is so important in your organization, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
I'd just like to say I apologize for the technical difficulties we had and getting your PowerPoint up late.
Thank you. No, and I probably should have called this morning just to make sure the snow kind of threw me off.
We should have had it ready. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate that.
Okay, and thank you very much for the presentation, and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Office of Problem Solving Court's discretionary grant approval to submit application and accept awarded funding. Ms. Leopold, Ms. Plank, how are you two this morning? Good, good.
You're doing well also.
We are, so far.
I'm Stephanie Leopold, Grant Manager with the Office of Grant Management, and here with me today is Eunice Plank, Court Administrator for the Circuit Court of Washington County. We are seeking approval for the submission of the grant application for the fiscal year 2019 Office of Problem Solving Courts discretionary grant in the amount of $187,225 and accept funding as awarded. The Office of Problem Solving Courts discretionary grant assists with operational expenses and ancillary services of the drug court programs. Due to a continual low caseload, the juvenile drug court program will be phased out after the remaining participants complete the program. A small portion of requested funds will go toward the support of the few remaining youth for transportation and drug testing services. The balance of the grant funds will be used to implement an adult drug court program, which is currently in the planning phase. The adult drug court will provide supervision and access to services that will reduce substance using and criminal behavior while increasing positive community involvement and overall individual and family functioning. The grant funds will allow better access to justice and treatment services by assisting with transportation, providing frequent drug and alcohol monitoring, and case management services. The Office of Grant Management has reviewed the grant application. Matching funds are not required for this program. In the case that the anticipated grant funds are not awarded, the Circuit Court Drug Court would request that the Commissioners cover the cost for wages and benefits of the coordinator's position. Other program services such as transportation assistance and trainings would be eliminated unless other grant funds could be secured. Drug testing would be limited to the number of tests that individual participants' insurances would cover. Additional drug tests would be provided by the drug court. Are there any questions?
We have no questions. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to approve the recommended motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, 5-0. Thank you, and you all have a
you
good
very
day.
much.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase, NGT 18-004, 4 2018 Ford Escape and 1 2018 Dodge Ram 1500 pickup for Washington County Engineering and Construction Departments. Ms. Noggle?
Good morning.
Mr.
Brandy
Hobbs,
Noggle,
how are you?
Purchasing
Jim?
Department.
Mr. Eichelberger, how are you three this morning? Good.
The recommendation before you this morning is for 5 vehicles purchased under an intergovernmental cooperative purchase, 2 for engineering and 3 for the Division of Construction. I move to authorize by resolution Washington County Division of Engineering to purchase 2 2018 Ford Escape utility vehicles for $21,677 each, and to authorize the Washington County Division of Construction to purchase 2 2018 Ford Escape utility vehicles for $21,677 each, and 1 2018 Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck for $24,599 from Heritage Fleet out of Milford, Delaware. The total of all 5 vehicles will be $111,307. We'll be utilizing 2 state of Maryland contracts to purchase these vehicles. These contracts were awarded by the Department of General Services, Office of Procurement. The Code of Public Law does allow Washington County to procure goods and services through a contract entered into by another government entity. The cost will benefit the county due to the economies of scale this buying group leverages. I am also confident that even a solicitation going through our office would exceed the spend savings that we're getting on this contract. Both departments have budgeted for this purchase in their capital improvement plan in the amount of $98,300, with additional funding in the Division of Construction's general fund of $21,677.
Any questions from the commissioners? If none, we'll need a motion to approve as recommended.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, 5-0. Thank you. Have a good day. Rejection of request for proposal, PUR 1375, food services at the Washington County Detention Center. Mr. Curry?
Morning.
Mr. Rao? How are you this morning?
The subject before you is the rejection of request proposals, PUR 1375, food services at the Washington County Detention Center. Move to take what's in the best interest of take action which is in the best interest of the county, and ask to reject all the proposals that were received and to extend the current contract with Aramont Correction Service until June 6, 2018, to allow the department to revise the proposal and to solicit new proposals. The bids were advertised on the various websites. The current contract was awarded in 2013, and we have the Sheriff Mollendor's concurrence to ask to reject the bids and also to re-advertise to solicit new pricing. Also, you have a list of the proposers who solicit proposals.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners? Motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hayes is here, we could, instead of departing, we have time to go into closed session to do some of the closed session stuff. Am I missing anything? Unless I'm missing something. That
I
was-
think you're on time, and we have
Depart for-
something from Sarah. We have the fiscal year 2019 budget.
Oh, I go to depart for the Washington County landfill. I don't have the 11:05 on my agenda sheet.
It's not, yeah.
The updated one it is, I'm sorry. I don't have the updated one, now I do. Sorry about that. I knew you were here for a reason, I'm thinking. Okay, fiscal year 2019 operating budget for the general fund, Ms. Greaves. Now I'm back in business.
Thank you. Sarah Greaves,
happens when you
Chief
take your
Financial
notebook.
Officer. I have with me Kim Edlin, Director of Budget and Finance. Well, as you know, it's been quite a process to get where we are today. We do bring you a balanced FY19 budget. You heard earlier that we were dealing with a $5 million shortfall, or approximately that. So I'm happy to be able to present to you today a balanced budget of $229.2 million, which is a $7.5 million increase over FY18's budget. In your budget books, we do have a presentation on tab 3. If you would like to get your books and turn to tab 3.
In fact, it's included in there.
Oh, in your agenda packet? Okay, sorry about that, yep. Page 3.5 is where I would like to begin our discussion. On page 3.5, you can see a few charts that display the history of the general fund. The first chart is the general fund budget and shows how it has changed over the past 10 years. It's increased from 2010 by approximately $20 million. Do you guys have it? Okay. Only the summary was in the RF.
On draft 1,
Are you on tab 3 of your budget book?
I'm looking at the general fund revenues. General
Okay.
fund revenues.
Well, yes, we are there, but we had a presentation packet that we put in your budget books. And so that's what I'm going to be referencing today, just so that you guys can.
Your drawer is likely this book.
3-5.
Got it.
Okay, all right. The first chart, as I said, is a history of the general fund. It shows the period of 2010 until now. Over the past 10 years, the budget has increased approximately $20 million. The second graph that you see is a history of the general fund expenditures, and you can see where the majority of the increases lie over that 10-year period, with education being $9 million and public safety representing about $17 million in increases over the same time period. Just a snapshot, high level, for the commissioners. If you turn to page 3.6, there is a general fund revenue sources graph showing that 55% of county revenue is derived from property taxes, 40% from local taxes, and 5% from program revenues. On the same page, the second graph is a visual of where the $7.5 million increase is going to, public safety accounting for 52%, and education 22%. The other categories make up the remaining 26%. Okay. If you turn to page 3.7, we will do a review of county revenues. General revenues, the property tax budget is based on assessments received from the State Department of Assessment and Taxation and shows an increase of approximately 2%. The income tax budget is based on current year projected actuals with a 3% increase, and recordation tax increased by $500,000 based on historical trends. And those are the reasons for the almost $5 million increase in that category. Charges for services, the majority of this increase is related to the increase in speed camera revenue. Speed camera revenue, there's $840,000 included in speed camera revenue that is directly offset by speed camera fees or an expense. So I want the commissioners to keep that in mind as we move forward with the budget discussion, because it is important to realize that $840,000 included in the speed camera revenue is offset directly by speed camera expense for the fees for the cameras. If the commissioners would like to turn to page 3.8, there are a few charts related to property tax revenue and local tax revenues. These revenue sources are the largest sources for our general fund budget. The graphs show a 10-year history and do offer a nice visual. You can see that the revenues declined between the years 2011 through 2015, but then have since shown steady increases, which is good, solid growth for the county. Do the commissioners have any questions looking at the general tax revenues? If not, we can move on to page 3.9. We're still on revenues right now, looking at charges for services. Again, as discussed just recently, the increase here is mostly related to the speed camera revenues. Speed camera revenue was increased to $4.8 million based on the amount of citations currently being received. Any questions on charges for services? Page 310 represents grants for operations, which shows a total increase of $16,000. So not much there. A few odd and ends here. Public safety, based on historical actuals, the budget for the child support enforcement grant was increased. The budget for the grant related to the day reporting center remained the same. And the state aid for police protection award is approximately $692,000. But not any major increases in this section. And that would be our summary of the county revenues section, and we could move on to the expenditures if the commissioners, agree. The county has included a 1.5% COLA for employees, and our
On a specific page.
not yet. I'm just talking in general terms right now. That the county has included the 1.5% COLA for employees and is proposing no increase for health insurance rates for employees. And just for informational purposes, the Board of Ed is proposing between a 2.5 and 3% either step and COLA for employees. Their step is 2.5. For some employees, they're proposing a 0.5 COLA. So that's why I gave the range. If you could turn to page 315, that would be the first page to start our expenditure discussion. You will see that the entire budget of $229.2 million, education costs make up 49% of the budget. and public safety is 22%. These are the two largest categories for general fund expenditures. And the increases related to the $7.5 million include education increases of $1.6 million, public safety increases of $3.8 million, $1.5 million increase related to pension cost, and the remaining $500,000 shows up between operating transfers, debt service, courts, and state operations for a high level on where that $7.5 million is going. If you turn to page 316, we can dig a little bit deeper into some of the expenditures. For education, the county is proposing a $1.2 million increase for maintenance of effort funding and $292,000 increase for the community college and approximately a $92,000 increase for the library. Wouldn't that be some increase? 92 million. Law enforcement, the increase is mainly related to wages and benefits, personnel requests, and the $840,000 that we spoke about earlier related to the speed camera fees. Increases in inmate medical fees and food, and a $60,000 increase to the Humane Society. Emergency services, the largest part of this increase is related to hiring 8 full-time firefighters. And the budget also funds $54,000 in turnout gear for volunteers and $74,000 in communication equipment for volunteers. Our transfers for the county also increased by about $1 million, and these were mainly related to transfers to solid waste and the highway funds. FY18 reserves were used to balance the highway fund last year, but we did not use reserves this year, which is part of the reason why you see an increase. And also related to the solid waste, debt service increased in that fund, as well as closure, post-closure cost. So those are reasons for that, those increases. And then the other areas related to the courts and state and other categories are related to wages and benefits. Page 317 is the breakdown for education expenses. And I just spoke about how the Board of Education, the proposed increase was $1.2 million, HCC $292,000, and the Free Library approximately $92,000 there. Page 318, as we move into additional detail for law enforcement. Judicial increase by $230,000. This was mainly due to personnel requests to increase part-time wages, as well as an increase in wages and benefits from the COLA this year and in FY19. Patrol shows a $1.7 million increase. $840,000 of that is from the speed camera fees. So if you subtract that, it's closer to about $900,000 increase. And this was to fund several personnel requests, increases in uniforms, gasoline, ammunition, and then wage and benefit increases. The detention center increased approximately $400,000, with the majority of these increases in wages and benefits. Medical services and food for inmates also increased in accordance with the contracts that they have. And then, as stated before, for animal control, We are funding that with an increase of $60,000, which is a 4% increase, plus an additional $6,000 for liability insurance on tasers.
Just for my clarification, animal control being listed under law enforcement, can you remind me, are those employees of the Sheriff's Department, or are they employees of the Humane Society?
It's the Humane Society.
Okay.
Yes. Any questions on law enforcement expenditures? Okay, if you want to turn to 319, we can review emergency services. Major changes here include almost a $400,000 decrease for special operations. This budget was for part-time wages, and it was actually moved to the fire operations budget. So you'll see a $1.1 million increase in the fire operations budget. So while we're looking at this, understand that almost $400,000 of that is coming from the special ops department. Fire and rescue volunteer services. We are proposing to fund a recruitment and volunteer coordinator position for $67,500, allocating an additional $25,000 to CRS for a third ALS chase responder, increases in appropriations to the volunteer companies for reimbursement programs, and $43,000 increase in insurance, $24,000 increase in volunteer programs. The total increase for fire and rescue volunteer services is $214,000. Moving on, 911 had an increase of approximately $175,000. This is mainly related to wages and benefits and the two new proposed additional call takers that you may be familiar with from the presentation on personnel requests. And as briefly discussed before, fire operations increased by $1.1 million. This is due to funding the 8 full-time firefighters, moving part-time wages from special ops to this department, and then $54,000 for firefighter turnout gear for the volunteer program. Any questions for emergency services? Okay. I do want to mention wireless communications did increase $136,000, and almost $75,000 of that was for equipment to upgrade 30 fire and EMS locations to enhanced internet-based fire station alerting communication protocol. So I did want to note 75,000 or 74,000 rather is attributed to upgrade those stations. Now, any questions on emergency services? Okay, moving on. Operating transfers, page 321. As discussed before, 2 major increases, one related to highway, one related to solid waste fund. Highway, the increase is related to the additional prison crew, which I think is partially offset by the city of Hagerstown. Also, increases due to repairs, maintenance, and snow removal costs, as well as what was mentioned before, which was that the budget was balanced last year using fund balance, and this year we're not using that, so that's a direct increase for the budget. Solid waste is increasing based on closure, post-closure costs, and an increase related to debt service costs. Any questions? Okay. Page 323, capital related. The proposed amount going to the capital fund is $5 million. For FY19, you do see a decrease in debt service. This is just mainly related to taking out some reserves that we were building up in case the board wanted to issue debt for the downtown project, but at this point, we don't really see that happening, so we were able to reduce that budget a little bit. The next page, 324, for the court system. $109,000 increase in this area was related to wages and benefits for a state's attorney. The other $60,000 increase was related to wages and benefits for the circuit court. Page 325, for state operations, an overall $82,000 increase. Approximately $40,000 of this was an increase for the election board, increase in contracted services for wages and benefits for state employees, and hiring deputies for security at early voting sites. And also, just to note, we did move $57,000 related to rent into the general ops department as a placeholder. Currently, they don't need that money for rent, but in the future, if they do, that's why we've moved it into a separate budget to hold it for them. Social services increased about $11,000. This was due to the number of residents in adult foster care needing support for basic needs, 2% COLA for staff in the DADS connection, and a small increase related to loss of funding from SNAP. The University of Maryland Extension increased about $4,000 due to a 2% COLA. And the soil conservation increased about $12,000, mainly related to increases in wages and benefits. Any questions for state operations? The last section is many departments on a high level. Wages and benefits increased overall due to the proposed COLA and also the additional funding for the pension plan. As I mentioned earlier, there was a $1.5 million increase for pension costs, so that is shown here in this budget. And for operating expenditures, the largest changes here include $30,000 in contracted services for the county attorney for outside legal counsel, $17,000 increase in HR employee programs for parking costs, an increase in HR contracted services for continued civility training, and an increase in building utility costs. I did want to note that we do have $1.7 million proposed for community funding, and that will be in your books, a detail of where that $1.7 million will be on tab 11 of your budget books if you'd like to see a detail of that $1.7 million. Let's go there. I can go over these requests, or I can let the commissioners review them at their leisure.
Commissioner's choice. We can review them. We'll review.
You'll review them. Okay, very well. That concludes the general fund budget presentation for FY19. This is our draft 1. We do have a couple changes that we'll be making, so we'll be having a draft 2. Any comments or questions from the commissioners at this time?
Commissioners, questions, comments?
I would like to say that, you know, the staff has worked extremely hard in providing this budget, and many, many hours were used up just detailing every account. And for the general fund budget. Kim is just noting that if the commissioners would like additional detail on general fund expenditures in tab 4 and 5, you will be able to find a complete, comprehensive account for all of the items that were discussed at a high level today. And also, I want to thank our staff, and I also want to let the commissioners know that throughout this process, we have been working diligently with the departments and trying to have a collaborative effort in bringing the best, most appropriate balanced budget to you today. And so we really appreciate those efforts with the departments as well. So, thank you.
Okay, anything, is that it? Okay, thank you for everything. Commissioners, last chance for comments on the operating budget. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone that attended to hear that portion of our budget.